6 signs you see invisible social cues, the brain of the social hunter. Welcome to my channel, Habit Compass. Today, we are taking a super fascinating journey right into the hidden mechanics of human interaction. We're going to look at the exact anatomy of what makes someone a social hunter. You know, a person who navigates the world with this heightened sense of perception that honestly borders on a superpower. If you've ever felt like you're reading a completely different script than everyone else in the room, well, this video is going to map out exactly what is happening inside your mind.
So, let's dive right into this. You saw that eye roll, didn't you? Even if it literally lasted only half a second. You noticed that slight tension in someone's jaw right before they answered your question. You felt the subtle shift in the room's energy before a single word was even spoken. Does this sound familiar to you? Because if it does, you're not just imagining things, and you definitely aren't overthinking it. Your brain is literally wired to detect what others completely miss. While most people are out there listening only to the loud, obvious dialogue of life, your brain is quietly capturing all the hidden subtitles. You are experiencing the world through the lens of a social hunter, actively gathering this critical social data that just flies right past the average person.
Section 1. Spotting subtle cues. Lightning-fast detection. When you're in a social setting, your brain is operating at split-second speeds, catching these tiny physical shifts before your conscious mind even realizes what it's looking at. And we actually have a formal vocabulary for this exact phenomenon: microexpressions and subtle signals. Now, these are not your standard everyday smiles or frowns. These are fleeting, almost entirely invisible social cues that flash across a person's face or body for just a fraction of a second. They usually happen when a person tries to conceal an emotion, or when an emotion is processed so quickly they don't even realize they've shown it. To the vast majority of the population, these signals are essentially invisible. But to you, they are loud, they are clear, and they are absolutely impossible to ignore.
And this really brilliantly illustrates exactly how this visual detection works in practice. So imagine a tight close-up on a face with simple dot eyes. Suddenly, blink, that eye moves just 1 single millimeter. To a normal observer, nothing happened. But for the social hunter, bam, that internal exclamation point immediately flashes right above your head. Alert! A shift has occurred. It's a literal visual trigger. Your brain catches that microscopic 1 millimeter twitch and instantly flags it as vital information. It's this rapid, split-second reaction that shifts you into high alert without you even having to think about it for a second.
Section 2. Processing data. Decoding the signals.
Okay, so what actually happens in the milliseconds after that exclamation point goes off in your head? Because your brain doesn't just register the movement and move on, it has to decode it. We're shifting from the physical observation to the incredibly powerful internal supercomputer running quietly inside your mind. Look at this comparison. On one side, we have the average observer. They look at the person across from them and they just see a completely blank, neutral face. The conversation seems totally fine, everything is normal. But on the other side, we have the social hunter. You don't see a blank face. You see an active stream of data flowing from that person, literally like zeros and ones in the matrix. Your brain is instantly translating that 1 millimeter eye shift into a complex data stream. They're annoyed, they're hiding something, or they disagree but won't say it. You are actively processing a high-speed flow of social code that the average person is totally oblivious to.
Section 3. The early wiring, neuroscience of hunters.
Let's take a step back for a second, a quick flashback, if you will, to understand exactly where this superpower comes from. Because you weren't just randomly handed this ability to see the social matrix. This stems from the deep, underlying neuroscience of your early development. It all begins in the early years. As a child, you are constantly scanning your parents' or caregiver's face. You are looking for tiny signs of approval, safety, or just shifts in mood. And because of this hypervigilance, during your formative years, your amygdala, which is the brain's emotional and threat detection center, wired itself specifically to be incredibly sensitive to these subtle nonverbal signals. It basically learned that missing a cue just wasn't an option. Then, as we move into the teenage years, your prefrontal cortex, the logical decision-making part of your brain, develops to catch up with that highly sensitive amygdala. It learns to organize and strategize based on those emotional alarms. Your brain quite literally built a custom hardware setup perfectly designed for advanced social survival.
Section 4. Social strategy, real-time action.
All right, now that we know why your brain is built this way, we have to look at how you apply this early wiring to real-time action today. Because honestly, spotting the cue is only half the battle. What you actually do with it is what makes you the social hunter. The absolutely crucial point here is how this incredible internal process translates into outward action. First, you observe that 1 millimeter shift. That's the rapid detection.
Second, you process the zeros and ones, that intense matrix-like data interpretation. And finally, you adjust your adult strategy. Because your amygdala and prefrontal cortex are working in perfect harmony, you don't freeze when you see that invisible cue. You pivot. If you see the invisible tension, you change the topic. If you spot the hidden hesitation, you ask a softer question. You use that flowing data to make immediate, real-time strategic adjustments so you can navigate the social environment flawlessly.
Which brings us to our final, provocative thought for this video. How will you adjust your strategy using the hidden data of subtle signals? Now that you realize your ability to see these microexpressions isn't just a quirk, but a highly evolved survival tool hardwired right into your brain, how are you going to use it to your advantage in your next meeting, your next conversation, or your next negotiation? The data is flowing all around you right now. You just have to know how to use it. If you learned something new, subscribe to the channel for building better habits through navigating Compass, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.